Hello, this is Rod, Live Within Your Means. Hey, I was going to cook a roast today for my family, a pork roast. I'm taking over to Mom and Dad's after church. And I've got a Queensland Blue Squash. I wanted to cook some Queensland Blue Squash with it. This is one that was just picked in October this year, just a couple of months ago. This is one that was picked in October 14 months ago. And I wanted to show how long this could last. And I thought about letting it last a little longer, but guess what? I felt right here, and it's soft. So this is on its way after 14 months. And so I wanted to show you. Let's take a look. We'll pull this off. And like I said, it's getting soft right there. Let me just rinse this squash off before cutting it up, because I'm going to be cutting this up, and this will be cooking today in the oven with some other pork roast and some other things. So like I said, it's soft right here, and we're not going to use the fresh squash because this one's on its way. I don't like things going to waste. It makes me sad that I didn't catch this in time, but well, maybe I did. We'll see how bad it is inside in the middle of it. And so I'm going to cut this up, have a bowl here to put some of the stuff in, and we'll grab another bowl here to put the innards in before we the seeds and stuff inside the squash before I chuck that out. So I'm going to cut this squash. I really like this knife. It's a knife that my wife has had for many years, and it's made by Cutco. But what a great knife. It's our favorite knife. It's her favorite knife. It's my favorite knife. Pick out of vegetables. And look at the inside of this. They're starting to get just a little bit of mold right there in the middle. And right there, it looks like it's starting to get some mold on it. And we know that it's soft over on this side. So I'm going to cut this up. Let's use this one first, this half. Cut this up into quarters. Then I can scoop the junk out of it. In fact, it's soft right here, and that was on, is that the top? I guess it is. So I'm just going to cut a lot of this off instead of having to, I don't mind wasting a little bit of it. I've got quite a bit of Queensland Blue Squash from the garden this year. And right here, we're going to cut this off of here. And then I can scrape the rest of this out. Let me do the same here, because this is where it was getting soft right there. Yep. Lasted for over 14 months. That's pretty darn good without having to do anything to put it up. And it looks like I did catch this in time. It's just that a little teeny bit of it's going to waste. But there's an awful lot of it. You know, 90-something% of it is going to be just fine. I'm going to grab an ice cream scoop so I can scoop these seeds out of here. And this squash, I notice that when I cook it and leave the skin on, that skin softens right up. I don't mind eating it. I know it's full of vitamins. Some people don't like eating the skin on the squash. So this I'm going to put it over here, in here for now, and I'll be cutting that up more. And these seeds right here, I'll pull this back so that you can see what I'm doing here. But I'm just going to scoop these off into this, and this is going to be going into the garbage after I get all the seeds out of this squash. So, but I'm really amazed, because this is the longest I've ever kept one of these squashes, is 14 months. 14 months. That's over a year. I didn't have to put it up. I've put plenty of this stuff up in bottles, and pull this back up so you can see a little bit better here. But maybe I'll put the camera over on this side. There we go. As I scoop these seeds out, and I don't need to save any seeds because I've got tons of squash seeds, and I've got a whole bunch for Queensland Blue, which is one of the main types of squashes I grow. It lasts a good long time. I have to be honest with you, I like butternut the best because it's just me and my wife, and even though I'm going to cut this up and put this in the oven to bake for other people in the family today, brother and my parents. I like butternut squash because it's a little bit sweeter and it's smaller, and so you can always cut up a couple of squash. But it's nice to have different kinds, and this Queensland Blue Squash is definitely one of my favorites, and I believe it's one of my wife's favorites too. She got the seeds for this squash when we were over visiting her parents a few years ago over in Australia, because that's where my wife is from, is Australia, and Queensland is one of the, I'm going to call it a state, but it's one of the areas there in eastern Australia. And yeah, she got the seeds there because they had this kind of squash when she was growing up, and I have to admit, it's pretty good squash. It's sweet. It takes all year to grow. I mean, it really takes several months to having the sun hit those big old squash leaves to develop all the sugars that are in this, because it's full of sugar. It's a sweet squash, just like, not quite as sweet as butternut, but there's a number of winter squashes that are sweet, and that's what it is the sun through photosynthesis, right, is creating these sugars, and it's sugars that make this sweet. And so, you know, I've always thought, well, God, what can you grow that, you know, have all that sugar? Obviously, grapes have a lot of sugar in them. They get really sweet. But what can you grow here in the northern hemisphere, not near the equator, that has a lot of sugar? And it's squash. Now, I've never seen anybody saving all that, you know, refining the squash and sugars, or the sugar in squash. Maybe somebody does. I'm not familiar with it. There's a thought, right? They definitely raised sugar beets and refined that sugar once upon a time. I don't even know of any sugar beet farms around now. There might still be some. When I went on a horticulture trip more than 35 years ago, when I was going to school, I was majoring first in horticulture, and we went on a trip down to California and went to a processing plant where they processed the sugar beets, ground those up, and squeezed out that sweet juice, and they refined it. And they'd run the sugar, when it was crystallized, through centrifuges, and I remember them taking the impurities off of there, and I was really surprised to learn that the dark parts, the impurities, were actually run through a centrifuge out of that sugar, and that's what molasses was. And it's like, really? That was new to me. Now, some people may not like hearing that, may disagree, but that's what I recall. So here's all these seeds, and I'm going to throw those in the garbage, but I'm going to be cutting up this squash into pieces that are going to work better in the oven, and got a little bit of that on the floor. So I'm going to cut these up into pieces like this, and a little bit smaller, and those can be baked in the oven with a little bit of olive oil on them. You can spice them with salt and butter afterward, or you can put sugar on them, brown sugar, and have it even sweeter. You can make these up into something like yams, and I have cooked yams and fooled my family before and told them this was all cooked up, and I had marshmallows on the top like candied yams, and it was squash. My dad thought it was good until I told him it was squash, and then he didn't like it so much anymore. But this can be put into a pan and just brushed olive oil on it, and I'm going to be doing that, but I'm not going to make a long video out of this because I've showed cooking butternut squash before. But I wanted y'all to see that I had this Queensland Blue Squash for 14 months. It was picked in October of 2022, and here it is, December of 2023, and this is going to be great for a Sunday dinner today. So you can look back at many of my other videos. I hope you'll be kind, put some comments below. If you've learned something here, give it a like. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you're welcome to do so. Thank you for your comments, your likes. This is Rod. Live within your means and have a wonderful day.